Excuse me, frog in my throat. Evening, Sean. Evening, Suffolk.
Evening, Sean. Evening, Suffolk.
Oops, volume still up. So, I thought I would do a tasting of this Robert Louis Orcilla mixture. I'll get to that shortly. That's yesterday's pipe. Good evening, Robert. Tonight, I've put a bit of boarding up to stop Mickey getting in here. If you guys, whoever was on here last night, will know that I was kept company by a little mouse in my garage. So hopefully, we won't get him visiting tonight. How you doing, Wood Spirit? All right, first of all, I've got a mega briar delivery coming today. Got some, what's it called? Plateau. And we've got some large Evershon blocks. Ciao, Sandro. How you doing? Thank you. I enjoyed going to St. James's. It's really nice to get out sometimes. Just check out the tight little bird's eye there, the plateau. Really, really small. That one is tempting to make as it is, you know, just to leave it plateau. Not sure. It'll make a beautiful bird's eye as well. Might use that tonight. A lot of these blocks are quite flat. Mouse lives do matter. I didn't kill it. I just stopped it from joining me. Although I have killed rats before. Check out that one. That can make a nice flat, long shanked pipe. Interesting shape on that one. Excuse me for yawning. Very tired. I should really go upstairs and just relax for a bit and go to bed. I went to bed last night at 4 a.m. and I woke up at 8 o'clock and fell back asleep for about another 45 minutes. So less than 5 hours sleep probably. Another decent sized Evershon. This would do a beautiful sandblast. I can see the ring grain there without even sanding it. This would make a lovely sandblast. I should really start putting away a few blocks for when I... So as you can see, a lovely influx of briar, which is always a good day when we get new briar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 blocks. Very happy with that. You know, I'm going to put it back in the box for now. And I'll sort them through later. that block which I thought I might use. Tonight, really, what I want to do is make a start on just a basic classic Levat. A lot of these are really not very tall, so bowl-wise, these are all Mimo blocks, yes. And this is the block that I've been putting away for pipe number 100. I don't know what I did with that block or which block it was that I was going to do. Maybe it was this one. Look at that. Beautiful plateau. You know, the plateau you often get, if you have a look at that, you see that it's not even at the top. You see it dips it goes down like that on a U shape. And that's really doesn't give you the best result in terms of shaping. But when it's really flat and quite even, you know, that's makes life a lot easier. This actually could make a beautiful horn pipe. See that shape? It's a desk. It's boscopiperuk@gmail.com. I'll type it up here. You'll find it as well on most of my pipe videos. No worries, rocking steady. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna draw out a bit of a shape. Then I'm gonna open the tobacco, have a little bit of a smoke. Right, we have one ingredient, a pencil. And what we need now is through the detritus, or whatever the word is, my ruler. So, what I'm thinking, So I'm thinking something along those lines. Obviously that's going to be shorter because... Alright, well in terms of thought process, so let me just sand it off a little bit so you can see. Am I still getting the same reception problems as yesterday? Alright, hang on, I'm just going to turn off the Wi-Fi. I don't know, for some reason the Wi-Fi just last few days seems to be very bad. I keep meaning to just do something about it and I still haven't. So I'm just using my data. I've got a decent data package, so it should be alright. Right, so this grain is nicer on one side than the other, but you can make out that the grain is radiating out towards the edges there. So what I was thinking is basically whenever you take off the plateau, that leaves behind bird's eye. So in order to get a nice bird's eye on the base, I was thinking, I mean I could also do it like this. So you have a cross grain. So you could have a bowl here, for instance, going down. So essentially a circle there and your stem there like that. I don't know if you can see it, but very roughly done there. So that you have your bowl over there, the stem going across, and what you'd have is you'd have cross grain going across there, cross grain going across the top rim, but on the sides you'll have beautiful bird's eye on both sides of the bowl, hopefully, and a stream of straight grain going all the way around. In theory, I mean, depending on how good the grain actually is, because you can have a block which you sand and you wet it, you look at the grain and the grain looks spectacular. Once you start sanding around, it could be just in the first couple of millimeters that the grain is great, and then it changes direction once you get further inside. And you can have vice versa, which I've had many times, where the outside I'm thinking I'm going to rusticate, and then once I start shaping it and sanding it, I end up with a stunning piece of briar. Good evening, Leffa. Good evening, Simon. Good evening, Terry. Good evening, Mike. I have got a signal booster, but it's also a bit iffy at the moment. And I keep saying this, I think that my supplier is messing around with me, because I still haven't signed up to a contract. And how's the sound at the moment? Is it still bad? It's working okay, good. Well, on my other phone that I'm using to read the messages is giving me grief now. Alright, I'll try and keep up to date with the messages. I mean, I can see them on the screen, it stays on there for a couple of seconds, so hopefully I'll try, depending on what I'm doing. Alright, should we get this started so I can talk about it while I'm doing stuff? So, as you saw in the video, I went to St. James's yesterday, not yesterday, the day before. And I was looking for a Virginia Perique Oriental. His first reaction was, try nightcap. And I said, no, I'm not looking for nightcap, for no Latakia. So he suggested this Orcilla, and he gave me another one which I can't remember the name, but I've left that upstairs. So we're going to try this one and we'll see. This smells like latakia. It better not have latakia in it. If it is, I'll be very disappointed. The guy doesn't know what he's selling me. But I think I did look it up. No, maybe it's not. It's just a strong smell. It's a very, very farmyardy smell. The aroma. It's very farmyardy, and somehow that kind of crosses over into almost smelling like latakia. Campinel, yes, Sean. Simon, you do silver work. Cool. Do you make pipes yourself? This is so close to a latakia. I haven't got a computer in front of me and I don't want to use the other phone because I'm watching your messages. Can somebody just go on to Tobacco Reviews and check out what the components is for this, for Orcilla mixture? So Simon, what kind of silver work do you do? Very well packed. It's a pretty Oriental Turkish Perik Virginia. Okay, well that's what I was looking for. Thanks, John. A nice sort of golden coloured mix. It looks like there's some dark stuff in there, which presumably is the Perik. And the Orientals. The Orientals tend to be a more of a khaki kind of colour, or khaki as we say here in the UK. A little bit of humidity there, not a great deal. Should be ready to go very shortly. It's got such a latakia-ish kind of aroma. I know I keep saying it, but it's just surprising. Okay, Simon. If you've got my email address, I've typed it up a bit earlier. If you can email me so I've got your email address, and then we can talk. Definitely, because I'm a long way off doing any metal work. So if I could do that as a collab, that would be awesome. It's just a bit further up in the messages. I can retype it if you want me to. It's no secret. It's on most of my pipe videos where I'm showing my new pipes. So a lot of golden Virginias, lemon Virginias, very bright Virginias there. That aroma, I would have expected something a little bit darker, to be honest. But there you go. All right, we'll set that aside for the minute. So I'm thinking if I go with something like this, it's going to be quite involved. And I really wanted tonight to do a classical pipe. I wanted to do a classical, maybe like a brandy Lovat, something like that. Right, so that's a Lovat type stem. So you can see the rough form that it comes in. There's still quite a bit of work to be done to get this looking like a beautiful ebonite stem, which it will eventually be. A bit of shaping to be done there. It's not just a matter of taking it out of a box and putting it on the end of a pipe. That's got to be chopped off, and I've got to drill for a tenon, glue it in, and all that. There's a fair bit of work that goes into that. to cut this off right now. So I've taken the tenon off, and I'll straighten that with a Forstner bit, and then drill for a tenon, 9mm tenon. Right, that's to come. So I'm going to leave that for a minute. How about this one? This one could be okay. Hey Paul, how you doing? Oh, I forgot to send you those bank details. Never mind. Well, there's nothing really very much to talk through. It's really just it's very rough, and when I'm making the pipe, I've got a rough shape in mind, but the rest of it I'm guided on the lathe pretty much, and I'm really just following an axis. So that's really a very rough drawing, very roughly based on the diameter of the thing of the shank of the stem, and that obviously will be sanded down on the lathe to match. I always draw it wider so that I've got plenty of room to play with, and then sand it down to match. Good night, Suffolk. Thanks. So I'm just going to draw the actual drill lines. So there you've got the draft, and there you've got the drill, and that's, you know, I don't measure really. I used to in the beginning, but you get a feel for it after a while, and the central will find itself on the lathe anyway. So if I'm a millimeter out here, it doesn't really matter much. The only way it does matter is when I'm gauging that and that to meet. So that is important, but I can see, let's measure it and see. So the width at the top is 2.7, which means that it should be 1.35 in the middle. I'm not lying. I ain't lying when I tell you it's pretty bang on. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically spot on. So if you also notice that my draft line has a very, very slight incline, because I always want to make sure that there's plenty of briar left underneath. A lot of pipes that you buy, even straight pipes, well, actually especially straight pipes, at the end of the day, if it's a straight pipe, the draft hole is always going to be roughly halfway in the diameter of the shank, which means all you've got left is the other half underneath. No matter what you do, unless you're doing a poker or something like that, where you're continuing down below, but the bowl stops there. Yes, okay, then you'll have plenty briar. But in a traditional bowl, where it goes like that, you've always got an issue here where you're going to be close to the bottom. So I do a very, very slight incline, literally a tiny, tiny incline, just to give that extra little, maybe half a millimeter there. And that basically, hopefully, helps to prevent burnout. How many millimeters for the draft? I use 4 millimeters. I think 3 is traditional. I use 4. So I'm just going to straighten the end off there. So essentially that's going to be the length of the pipe. I think you could call that a lavat. We'll see. This may end up being a billiard shape. We'll see whether I give it that bulbous look or not. Really depends on how the briar looks when we get to it. So I've got the bandsaw situated right next to me, so it's very convenient when I'm working and shaping and sort of working out the shape of a pipe. I've got it right next to me. I've never been to Copenhagen, so I've certainly not visited Tom's shop. It's actually a dream of mine to be able to do that, because I know that he's very generous with his time and his knowledge, and it is a dream of mine to be able to get there at some point. It really is. Okay, this bit here I could trim it, but I might just do that after I've done the drilling. It just gives me a bit more room to grip in the jaws. Sometimes when you shape it and you want to get the jaws gripped on it, you might end up sometimes with just a little corner to hold onto. So I leave that bit on. I might just straighten it a bit, because that bit will stick into it and take away some of the depth. So I'm going to take a little bit more off. I'm also going to take the platter off. All right, so you've already got a nice outline there, so it's something to work with. The only thing I've realised, which I do sometimes, there must have been a reason why I didn't draw on that side, but I like to draw it the opposite direction because it's just the way my eye works, that when it's in the lathe, I prefer the lathe is here gripping it there. So it doesn't matter, I can do it reverse way around, but that's fine. Okay. Hey Carl. Cheers, Simon. So 4mm, and I might have to go with quite a narrow bowl because this top is going to be quite narrow. So the top might end up being a little bit sort of Danish in style, so quite a narrow top with quite a thin rim as well. Yeah, so definitely going to have to go with this thinner bit. It's about 17.5mm, so it's quite narrow. Let's see how this is doing. All right. Got the Ascorti. The aroma that's coming up, as I said before, is all about that farmyardy kind of aroma. It's I would say it's about 20. It's about between 20 and 21mm. And ideally, I'd like to go just a tad wider on the diameter. That's 18.8 on that one, and that feels pretty good in terms of the diameter. That's 20. So I could go for a very similar diameter to that. All it would mean is that either it would be really thin at the top, or I would just trim the top a little bit so that, because it gets wide quite nicely there. So if I was to leave it as it is, you can see how narrow it would be at the top. You know, there'd be about 2.5, 3 mil, which is a little bit narrow for the rim. But as you get lower, that would increase to about 4 mil. But it would be quite a stunted bulb, which I don't really want. I do have a bit which is somewhere in between, which I can't put my hands on at the moment, but that's really the one that I want. The one that I want. This one might be it. Yeah, this is 18.7. I'm going to use that one, I think. Yeah, that'll be fine. Ooh, that bean stew. It's making a lot of smoke, that's for sure. Just bear with me for a second, guys. Right, tamper, pipe, action. Full Virginia flake. I've got to be honest with you, the whole wood stamp thing is really becoming a bit of a bugbear for me, because at the moment it's not working out, so I'm not using them. The ones that I've got hopefully will do the job. I've got to get my drill press back into action. The last time I dismantled it, I took the screws out which take it off the base, and I can't find those screws, and I need those particular screws. It's all a bit frustrating. Let's not go there. But I will get it sorted. What I did, in actual fact, was I separated the LCS pipes from London Made. There's the London Made one. So what I'll probably do is put one on each side of the shank, possibly, which a lot of paper makers do, the old traditional ones, and I'm trying to be sort of in the English traditional fashion of pipe maker. So rather than going for a very ornate, fancy logo, I'm just sticking with very similar to what Northern Briars does, a very classical English kind of style, the same as Blakemar. You know, I might as well follow my heritage, I guess, in terms of my logistical location. Seems we're all smoking Virginias tonight. A hot symbol stamp press, yeah, but that's, you know, that's probably a bit of money to get that set up. I was thinking of, you know, what kind of little dot or something which a lot of pipe makers use, you know, to identify their pipes. Besides for their nomenclature, they have a little something like the A or the Dunhill white spot, or the wooden one from Northern Briars, Ashton's, or the white thing from Costello. They've all got their own idea. No tobacco, oh no. Smoky Bear. Samuel guy with chocolate flake. I used to like that tobacco, I really did. I went off it, but I used to really like it a lot. The Star of David wood stamp I do have, and hopefully I will use them. Because what I do have, there's the LCS pipes one, LCS Briars. What I had him make me. You guys have probably seen this. He made me a brass block with a grub screw, and I can put in up to 4 digits into this, possibly even 5. So there's a block with all the numbers and everything, and I've got 3 Star of Davids. If you can see it there, I don't know how well it's focusing. So the idea was, if at some point I do decide to grade my pipes, that's how I was going to do it. 1 to 3, 3 stars, 1 to 3 stars of David. That was the idea. Whether it actually happens, we shall have to wait and see. That was the original LCS Briars London made, but it's just too big, so that didn't work. Well, this tobacco supposedly is 4 years old. Hey Cody, from Orcilla, yes I have. Hey Chad, we would like a tad of Chad. Frogmorton Cellar is very nice. I haven't had it in a while, but I might be tempted to go back to that because I'm kind of not smoking Latakia so much these days. But perhaps an aromatic Latakia might be just the ticket. Well, in terms of this tobacco, so far, I've only just had, 5 minutes worth of it. Absolutely, Carl, thank you. I like that comment. In terms of this tobacco, it's really not working for me so far. It's got a good tobacco flavour, And I'm not getting a good rich tanginess from those Orientals with a Perique. The Perique possibly is a little bit too much of a small condiment rather than a significant contribution to the flavour. And maybe it's not enough. I was really expecting this to be quite aromatic, with a small a from the Orientals, the Turkish, and I'm really not getting that. A little bit of floral sort of essence. I'm not getting that at all. So it's a bit disappointing, to be honest. But as I say, I'll get through the bowl. I don't want to make any rash sort of judgments as yet. Yeah, maybe, Carl. We'll see. All right, so there's the pipe shape, and there's the Lavat stem. So I'm going to move you guys over to the bench, so you can see what I'm doing. Otherwise, you'll get very bored. Actually, last time I stuck you overhead, didn't I? I think you'll be better off there. Hang on. It'll stop shaking in a sec. All right. Hey Jason, how you doing? Thank you, Sandro. That was going to come on. Me too, Carl. Me too. Steal away, Jason. I think I'll probably have more to steal from you than you two from me. I would normally do this by the desk, but I'm not going to move you around again. This is a very high quality countersink. This is a Fisch, F-I-S-C-H, it's German made. I've tried so many different countersinks and they all leave chatter. And if they don't leave chatter to start with, they do later on. And this one, you pay extra for it, but it's worth it. There's two sizes. This is the larger size. I think it cost me about £30, £28, something like that. So about $45 maybe, but it's worth every penny. You don't need to sand it at all to smooth it. It just gives you a beautiful, nice, shiny finish. The trick with it is that when you've got the depth that you want, don't move the lathe and just let it continue to rub it without going deeper, and it will give you a really nice finish. I see what you mean. Yeah, it does look good. Yeah, it's an interesting shape. Right, so that's your 9mm stem, and that needs to go off to harden a bit. By the time I've got the rough shape on the block, it'll be enough to go in there. I have to leave it in there because if I try to pull it out, it could pull the tenon out. But 5 minutes and that's hard, but I can't play around with it too much. It really needs a bit of time. So hopefully by the time I get to the point of putting it in, will be there. Yep, the Germans, very precise. Not always put to best use, but certainly very precise and very organised. These jaws basically stay on here. I use it just for the stems. So these jaws, little mini, they're called Record Power Compact Scroll Chuck. This is the RP2000. It's pretty reasonable and it served me very well. It's been more reliable than my very expensive main chuck, which is a big old thing, the Robert Sorby. This is I think my third or my fourth one, replaced free of charge because the gears inside have gotten gnarled up. It's just worth checking it every so often. Make sure you're good to go. Yeah, well, my tools are Robert Sorby and they're pretty good, although I've got nothing to compare it to because that's the only ones I've ever had. Putting the block in the chuck is crucial, otherwise you can't cut it. But I know what you're saying. It's got to be put in accurately, yes. Absolutely. That's where it's at. So the good thing about these jaws, these are Vermont freehand jaws. I think, Jason, you've got these as well, if I'm not mistaken, unless you've changed them. Sorry. Just so you can see them a bit clearer. So basically these ridges which bite into the wood, they're completely equidistant from that the middle of that tooth. So both of these, as long as you keep that lined up, you keep your draft line or your bowl line, whichever line you're working on, as long as you keep it in that central notch there, you should always find your true center, as long as you don't move it in middle somehow. And what I do find as well, I think I've mentioned this before, is that the blocks, when you get them, they're not always cut square, and I struggle to cut square. If I do it afterwards, I end up taking off too much wood. So as I'm putting it in, I just adjust it by eye, just to keep it as square as possible, because you could end up then just being a little bit askew. Your stem might be a little bit off to the side or something like that. So when you do that, you tend to knock the line out. Well, he's making new jaws. There are, you know, the big two ones that the people, I think it is Raw Crafted, he's been selling them, and the guy in Germany that I get stuff from, he's also got them. It's version 2, and it's got this little, you can put a grub screw in, and then just swing it on its axes. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? That is quite cool, because this is always an issue. But if you've got it lined up, it's really not an issue. They're like $300-400. So it's a lot of money. You got to be in the money to be able to be doing that kind of thing. You know, there's guys out there who have got literally hundreds of thousands of pounds of machinery in their workshops. All right, let's progress. This is another Forstner bit. This is also made by Fish. I've got a whole set of about 20 different diameters, but of the ones that I use all the time, I went out and bought these expensive ones. So I've got 2 Fish Forstner bits as well for doing my straight edge for my facing. And also superb quality. I don't like sanding the face whenever I make a pipe, because if you sand it, however easily you do it and however lightly you do it, you end up slightly adjusting the flatness, the trueness of the face. So I never sand the face, and so therefore it's crucial to have a good sharp Forstner bit to get that face. It makes it really nice, and as I said before, you get your depth that you want and then leave it there to just continuously spin, and it will almost like sand it to a fine finish. And then when you put it on the cutting mop, then you're going to get enough smoothness that way. I don't do anything for sharpening of these bits. I don't expect these bits to dull in a long time. They're very expensive. I think these Forstner bits were about £50 or £60 each. You're talking about $80, $90 for a Forstner bit. So as I say, they're very expensive, and they're very good. And to be honest, if at some point in the future they started to get dull, I'd probably just replace them. Right, what did I do with my brush? I'd be very worried about the trueness of that being affected if it goes to get sharpened. They're not designed to be sharpened. They're basically razor sharp. All right, there we go. I've got my depth. I'm just leaving it there for a few seconds. It takes off nanomillimeters or nanometers and just gets it nice and smooth. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Deeper. I didn't buy mine from Fish. I bought mine from Axminster, where I bought nearly all of my machinery, and they do ship overseas as well. So now we're going to drill for the mortise, and because I do it all the time 9mm, so I've got it pre-marked up. And what I tend to do is I start it off at higher speed. You might have noticed that with the stem before as well. I started it at a higher speed and then reduced it. What I find is, and I don't know if that's just the lathe that I've got, maybe it's not the best quality, I don't know. I mean, I got the best that I could afford. But what I find is as the drill touches the block, it deviates just a little bit from the pressure. So I find that because of the centrifugal force of that spinning, it pulls the bit just a little bit, and that sometimes can send you off, enough so that it's not 100% accurate. So I hold it quite tight, but if you spin it fast and just let it touch it very, very gently, it starts the initial cut-in very accurately. And then once I've got that set, then it won't pull it anymore because the head of the drill bit is already in there. And then I can slow it down and then drill in a more relaxed fashion where it's not going to overheat the wood. I don't know if you would call this a mini lathe or not. I don't know what you'd call it. I suppose anything which isn't jabongus, I suppose, is called a mini lathe, is it? Is that right? I wouldn't really know. So it's just enough to widen the hole a little bit. I want to get over the main diameter of the drill. I can feel it pulling already. There, it's pulling. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Once we're in, we're in. I'd expect this to be a MIDI because it's not a tiny machine. It's not like one of those little mini lathes. But maybe you would call it. I don't know. I'm no expert in that. So again, just leave it there a little bit longer and it almost polishes the finish. I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's got a little bit of a sheen to it already. Sorry, I've got to plug in the other phone so I can see the messages. The battery's running down. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Right, a bit of lubrication is required. All this time, the mortise is, the tenon rather, is drying up nicely. 12 inches, right? No. I think this might be 8. I'm not sure. Not sure. Okay. What are we doing? Draft. Might be a little bit of an issue. I've noticed that there's a little bit of a curvature on the bottom there. We'll see. Might have to just Jason, do you find that when you're after that you get a pain over here just around the joint from all the pressure that you're sort of? I get that with buffing, with turning. The last few days I've really had a very painful elbow, and I couldn't understand where it was coming from because I don't do anything with my elbow. And then it occurred to me that it's the pressure, and I can actually feel it when I'm doing my work. I can feel the pressure on that joint. Is that something that you're familiar with? I've got a little bit more. Yeah, that's what I used to do, Jason. Maybe that's what I've changed, and I've taught myself to hold it with my left hand, even though I'm right-handed, because I want to just stay away from that. I just find that I knock myself too many times, and even though I was very careful, it worked for me this way. But it's just, I don't know. For some reason, that seems to be a pressure point. I don't know why. So Curmudgeon's elbow shots is the left elbow, not the right elbow. thing to remember as well, if you ever do get into pipe making, is that if you have just glued your tenon, you don't want to move this now, because when you're sanding it warms it all up and it softens the glue. I've learned that too many times, so you just need to not touch it now as much as possible. I mean, it does come out a little bit from the turning force, but just leave it alone. As long as you've got it level where you want it, so when you're sanding it, it's really very nice, the transition at the moment. Not fully there yet, but almost there. There's a few little sort of dings and stuff which I need to sand out, so I'm staying on a coarse grit for that. Okay, hi Buckeye. Yeah, that makes sense, Jason. That certainly makes sense. Almost done with the 80 grit. One more very small bit there to get out. Well, scared is a good word, but I call it respect. I've got to just respect the machine for what it is, because it can quite easily take a finger of mine. No problem at all. I've had too many gouges in my fingers to take the risk. you do have to be conscious as well that you've got a 9mm tenon in there, so you don't want the shank to be too thin. So you've got to keep an eye on that and not to take the stem out to check. So you just got to have a good idea. So it's worthwhile measuring. It's worthwhile measuring it just once every so often. That's 15.4mm. The drill is 10.2mm. So that's leaving me about 4.2, which means a thickness of the shank of 2.1mm, which is not a lot. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'm just going to go up a bit in the grit. I'm not going to sand anymore. Not for cutting purposes, just for polishing purposes now. Alright, so I've taken it up to 400, which is good enough on the lathe. I'll go higher by hand later on. Okay, so for now I'm just going to leave that there to just cool down a little bit. I can feel the movement there, so I'm not messing with that. So now we're going to spin it and hopefully get a good drill for the bowl. So I'm going to just have that line up with the shank so I can turn as much of that as possible, but leave a little bit of clearance so I'm not in danger of catching the shank and ruining everything. In the best case scenario, you could end up having enough there to rusticate if you catch it. In worst case scenario, you go right through it or even knock it off completely. Where's that drill bit gone? I thought I put it down there. Hey Samuel, welcome aboard. Getting a bit hot in there. I'm not quite sure why it's on the slowest speed, but it's probably a little bit blunt by now, my drill bit. I'm not sure what you mean by spoon bits. I invested in one of these, which cost me a lot of money, and it makes such a racket. I don't know, maybe it's this particular one, maybe it's blunt, I don't know. This is also one of those German ones. I'm pretty sure it's the same stuff that they're selling out there, but it was impossible. It just really didn't work well. Maybe I've got to try somebody else's. Is this what you mean by a spoon bit? Or do you mean those gold-plated ones that he's got on Raw Crafted? Not happy. I think this drill bit's had it. Just let it cool down a little bit. Right guys, I've got to go indoors for a few minutes, so I'm going to break it here. What's the time now? It's 10 past 10. So I'm going to aim to be back here in about 20 minutes, about 10:30. Okay, thanks very much. Sorry to cut it short, but I've got to go inside. My daughter needs me. I'll see you soon.